If you haven't had the opportunity to ride the tail of the dragon, I highly recommend it as soon as possible, especially during the fall. This road, if you're unfamiliar, has 318 curves and just 11 short miles, and is one of the two most visited roads for motorcycle enthusiasts in the United States. When you're riding the dragon, you have to be alert, you have to be able to react, and you have to make quick adjustments constantly. Your clutch hand is going to be a little sore after you complete this 11-mile trek. This week, I'm using the tail of the dragon as an illustration for marriage. Now, when my wife hears this, I may have some explaining to do. If your marriage is flawless, then you don't need to listen to this any further. Feel free to close the video and go about your day. For those of you who are willing to admit that your marriage is less than perfect, I'm glad you stuck around. Give me just a little rope and maybe we can make sense of all this. This October, I will have been married to my wife for 21 years. And it has taken us almost the full 21 years to reach a point in our lives where I feel that we are in unison with our focus on God and our desire for ministry. The years that have led up to this point were fraught with heartache, there was moments of joy, and there are times where I think we both would admit that we were ready to give up and call it quits. We persevered, but not through our own doing or our own strength, but simply through God's grace and mercy. He and He alone is what held us together through the hardest and darkest moments of a marriage that has emerged as what we dreamily imagined when we first exchanged our vows. The dreams of our youth have manifested themselves during this time in our lives, and it has filled us with an excitement and joy that is unmatched. I mention the tail of the dragon as an analogy for marriage, at least in my mind, because all of the twists and turns we have experienced over the years, all of the near misses where we thought we were going to go off the proverbial road. But we have found our peace and solidarity by placing God firmly in the center of our marriage. And now we are seeing the truth of the vows that we took before our families and before God. We entered into our marriage as individuals, and it was a struggle to accept that we were no longer just two separate people, but that we were one, united before God. Then we struggled with the world around us, letting it influence us and take a hold of us, keeping God on the outside, sort of like one of those fire extinguishers you see behind the glass case that says, "Break glass in case of emergency." At some point in our marriage, we found ourselves in that emergency. And I'm happy to say that we broke the glass and admitted that we needed God to be in the midst of our marriage, not on the outside looking in. That decision to relinquish our perceived control over our own marriage and turn it over to God has had the greatest transformation in who we are as individuals and as a couple. We have found true peace and joy in each other because we have torn down the walls of our marriage and began rebuilding with our faith as the foundation and with God as the cornerstone. The author of Proverbs writes in chapter 18, verse 22, that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. In Ephesians chapter 5, verses 25 and 26, we see the command for husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word. And we also find in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. There are countless verses in the Bible that deal with marriage, how husbands should treat their wives, how wives should treat their husbands, the sanctity of marriage, and most especially, how marriage should be seen as a cherished gift from God. Is my marriage perfect now because we've radically transformed our focus? No, not even close. However, the fears and doubts are no longer there because we know who holds our marriage in His hands and what that means for us for the rest of our days. We will face obstacles, but we will face them together with God guiding us and leading us through them. It's truly incredible the peace that you will experience when you finally shift your focus of your marriage to God. Those twists and turns that you see before you somehow seem to straighten out and become less intimidating when you place God at the center of your marriage.